They were out early one morning, panning in the stream for gold, surrounded by the rising mountains. Old prospector with a tale for two, he brushed around in the pan, and pointing out what lay within was ordinary sand. He began with his story about 20 years before, and a younger man who sought his fortune. With a tear or two he told of searching for his treasure, but making known the gold he sought was ordinary pleasure. There were years of doing without, and there were years of plenty. He started thinking that life was never steady, excepting when the bills came in and he had no money to pay. Whiskey had never tasted better ordinarily. He concluded his story as it filled the air with a laugh, saying how he found the Lord and Savior, and how he found the river of life by which his day unfolds, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Through His Word we can see His wonders, signs and miracles of His love. We can return His love with devotion, standing on His word before all men. We are His beloved and His chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. promises. Through His Word we can see His wonders, signs and miracles of His love. We can return His love with devotion, standing on His word before all men. We are His beloved and His chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Believe upon His promises.
All right, welcome. Hello, everybody out there. I'm Mark Wallace. This is True North Studio, and the title today is Outgrow Your Space. Growth is a funny thing. It changes you. As your feet got bigger, Mom bought you new shoes. As you got better at your job, you moved up to a better position or moved on to a better career. As you got smarter, faster, and stronger, you outgrew your team. Every time we outgrow our current space, a new opportunity will always appear. Advancement is a side effect of growth. That's how God set things up. We had a teen in our suburban Texas neighborhood named Neil. And he was a super nice, average size, good looking boy with thick blonde wavy hair that fell over one of his eyes, making him a man of mystery. The girls went crazy over him. One summer I didn't see Neil much. He stopped hanging out with us. Maybe he wasn't feeling well, maybe he got a job, maybe he did something stupid and got grounded for the summer. Well, when fall rolled around and we went back to school, I finally saw Neil. He was no longer the cute little blonde kid that the girls loved. He'd grown almost 10 inches that summer. Plus he put on maybe 40 pounds. He was huge. He changed from cute little Neil into the Hulk. When I saw him, I had to blink twice just in case I was seeing things. And I walked around him like a scientist studying a newly received museum specimen. Neil's growth spurt changed everything about him. His new size attracted a totally different set of girls. He only hung out with the biggest of big kids now. He even changed sports. I didn't see Neil much after that. He outgrew us. Neil's growth spurt was not of his own choosing, but ours can be. The type of growth that I'll be talking about today is not about the natural growth of a too large child. Today I'll be talking about our well thought through personal growth. We'll discuss those small daily actions that change everything just a little bit at a time. Great reward will find us as we decide to outgrow our space. Now, one of Job's friends, while fumbling around trying to help him make sense of Job's loss of all his children and his entire fortune, got something right when he said, quote, "And though your beginning was small, your latter days will be very great." Job 8:7. Job ended up with 10 more children and double the wealth. We don't just go through life, we grow through life. The lesson here is that once you outgrow your space at work, in your art, with your music, your sport, even your ministry, new doors will begin to open for you. Romans 12:2 from the Message says, "Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out." Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings out the best of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. The King James Version calls our well-formed maturity the renewed mind. That well-formed maturity, that renewed mind, is only achieved by fixing our attention on higher level thoughts. When you're finally ready to advance, finally ready to make more money, finally ready to produce better music, finally ready to write that book, finally ready to lose that weight, finally ready to put your ding in this crazy old world, then you're ready to grow. But if we keep doing the same things in the same old ways, but expect some giant growth spurt or some financial windfall, we may be a little insane. Life doesn't work that way. I was recently reminded of a great quote from psychologist Dr. Carl Jung, where he said, quote, "We don't solve our problems, we outgrow them," end of quote. I like to say we have to change something to change something. Change requires us to move consistently in an upward direction. Now here's a cool verse that really made me think. James 4:8 from the AMPC. Come close to God, and He will come close to you. See, we play a part in our own success sequence. Sort of like Newton's first law of motion. Quote, "A body in motion stays in motion," end of quote. Now James, a younger brother of Jesus, is not telling us we need to go searching for God. Instead, he's telling us that as we move systematically toward what we want, then God will steadily move what we want closer to us. It's a law. When you believe, you receive, period. God makes it happen. So what do you want? What do you need? What are you moving toward? Well, just keep moving. Jesus says it best in Luke 16:10, quote, "He who is faithful in a very little thing is also faithful in much." That's from the AMP. Or as the Aramaic says, quote, "He who is trustworthy in little is also is trustworthy in much," from the APNT. So today let's look at a few pointers on how to outgrow our space so we can grow into a lifestyle that most people only read about. The 1% rule. Have you ever heard of the 1% rule? It's where you consistently make small upward changes in your life in trade for massive long-term results. It's not about quick, instantaneous growth. 1 Timothy 4:15 from the NABRE. Be diligent in these matters. Give yourself wholly to them so that everyone may see your progress. The 1% rule is the progress that results from diligent, methodical growth. Now, we've all seen enough people gain all the weight back and more after a crash diet. We also know about getting hurt at the gym when we push too hard too fast. We've got to put in the time, a little bit at a time. Like me, maybe you've even fallen for those get-rich-quick schemes that irritate your friends and leave you with less than you started. The 1% rule is making those tiny little changes in our lives that, if kept up, will move us incrementally forward. For big-time, long-lasting results, try to improve yourself a little bit every day. Add a little something extra into your daily routine. Or if you're trying to break a bad habit, then take a little something out. Then decide on a tiny new good habit and stick with it. Give yourself wholly to it. Basketball great Larry Bird said it well, quote, "I've got a theory that if you give 100% all the time, somehow things will work out in the end," end of quote. Every day, give 100% on your new 1%. Maybe make it a habit to plan out or take on your most difficult task first thing every day while you still have fresh energy. Maybe limit your time on YouTube or scrolling through Facebook or Instagram during work hours. Your followers will still be there after work. Maybe don't open the refrigerator every time you walk past. I know. It's hard. Oh, and drink more water. Commit yourself to a few good little habits and watch what happens to your life. Sounds a bit OCD, but it's not. These are not quirky obsessions. These are small daily decisions. These become good habits that force growth upon us or help you grow less if you're trying to lose weight. Massive benefits will accumulate over time. Mark Twain once said, quote, "Giving up smoking is the easiest thing in the world." I know, because I've done it thousands of times. End of quote. If you fall back into your old bad habits, just keep quitting. Keep quitting. Change is never easy. Our minds and bodies, our friends and families usually like us the way we were. They like the old us. Everything likes homeostasis, except change. So keep pushing. And when you fail, pick yourself back up and keep trying. Philippians 3:13 from the NIV, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, and press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Paul sounds a lot like one of those early motivational speakers, the guys with the shorter ties. He knew that our tiny changes will compound and over time and generate massive growth for us. I have a client who started investing with me maybe 12 years ago. He had $100 automatically taken out of his checking account every month. He didn't even notice the money leaving his account. He called me the other day, confused as hell, asking me why he had so much money in an account he didn't even remember opening. I reminded him that he'd been systematically investing for years. That's also the 1% rule. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Just get started. Just get started. Add a good habit into your daily routine, a behavior that will benefit you a little bit at a time. If you're a writer, then pick a time and write every day. If you're a musician, then practice every day. If you're married, maybe put your phone down and try to listen a bit more. If you're wanting to improve your work skills or your income, then do a little something every day that moves you closer to your goal. Remember James 4:8? If you're a runner, then lace up those shoes on a schedule and hit the trails or treadmill. Do your yoga every week. If you're a mom or grandma, well, you're already doing a lot. You deserve a nap. Build those good habits a little at a time. Grow yourself into the new life that you want. I slowly left a ministry that I dearly loved because it had grown one way as Josephine and I grew another. We learned many good things, but we no longer fit in their space. After 27 moves spanning 30 years, we coupled with multiple career changes, Josephine and I lived Spartan. We trained ourselves to live on very little. This practice can be both good and bad. Good if you're starting over all the time, but bad if you ever want to advance financially. I had inadvertently set a mental ceiling on wealth and income. Now, sure, we taught abundance and maybe in some way we lived it, but it wasn't at the level I wanted any longer. I knew I had to change something, but how? My friend Frida observed my struggle and she gave me a book about incremental changes. I devoured it and looked for more books like it. Unintentionally, I started reading a book a week. Plus, I slowly fell into a daily exercise habit. I started to go to bed at the same time, which caused me to get up at the same time every day. Because I was up early, I began to work on my next teaching every single day before anyone else in the house was up. Then I started running on a schedule, slowly expanding my distance, experimenting with different shoes and gear. I then started a small business and asked friends for side work to tide me over. At the same time, I also studied for certifications and licenses for a career that I could do as I got older, knowing I would need to work longer than most people. Shifting from my nomadic minister mindset to that of a prosperous working Joe and to not lose my heart and passion for God took focus and time. It didn't happen fast and it wasn't easy, but my finances slowly began to grow. I became physically, mentally and spiritually stronger, and my teachings have hopefully improved a bit too. The 1% rule began to compound for me. The effect of those small, good daily habits became noticeable. Thanks to my friend and her book, I outgrew my space. Quote, permit yourself to change your mind when something is no longer working for you. End of quote. Nedra Glover Tawwab. Now, isn't that how God designed this whole universe? If you want something, grow yourself towards it. Put in the time, put in the work, and be patient. Hebrews 5:11 from the Message. Paul wrote to some fairly new Christians, I have a lot more to say about this, but it is hard to get it across to you since you've picked up this bad habit of not listening. By this time you ought to be teachers yourselves, yet here I find you need someone to sit down with you and go over the basics on God again, starting from square one, baby's milk, when you should have been on solid food long ago. Milk is for beginners, inexperienced in God's ways. Solid food is for the mature who have some practice in telling right from wrong. That verse reminded me of a famous quote by Albert Einstein. Quote, we can't solve our problems from the level of thinking which created them. End of quote. Move toward that thing that you want, and God will move that thing closer to you. It's a spiritual principle. That's the design of creation. Plus, it's impossible to fail if we just keep failing in the right direction. Just keep growing a little bit at a time, and you will outgrow your current space. That's the 1% rule. Find your perfect environment. Sometimes when we're ready to grow even faster, we need to find our perfect environment. Being in the right place at the right time can be very helpful in our quest to outgrow our space. During a visit to the Sequoia National Park in California, I saw the biggest tree on earth, a tree named the General Sherman. I had studied about it when I was a young forestry student in college, so this was bucket list. This woody giant is not the tallest, but he's by far the biggest tree on earth, or on the planet. Plus it's over 2,200 years old and it's still growing maybe an inch wider every year. It was a young seedling when Jesus was still in diapers playing with wood shavings in Joseph's shop. The General Sherman tree is so wide it takes maybe 19 people holding hands to make a complete circle around its base. It's taller than an 11-story building. These sequoias can live anywhere, but they can only grow into giants in just one place on earth, only on the western slope of the Sierra Nevada mountains, only between 5,000 and 7,000 feet in elevation, and requiring a very specific heat and humidity index. Plus, the giant sequoias are born of fire. Unlike most trees, they need wildfire to thrive. Without fire, they cannot live or reproduce. Giant sequoias typically require wildfire for their cones to open and release their seeds. Plus, their thick cork-like bark is fire resistant so that when those wildfires rip through the forest and kill off thousands of other trees, there's now less competition for the sequoias for water, nutrients, and sunlight. Plus, the newly burnt undergrowth makes for a fertile seedbed perfect for the tiny sequoia seedlings, and the cycle continues. There is only one perfect environment on Earth for the giant sequoias, and that's where the air is thin, the summers get hot, where the winter snow piles up deep. That place is only on the western slope of the Sierra Nevadas. What's your perfect environment for growth? For us, it may or may not be a place. It may be a mindset, a headspace, or a group of people who will allow your personal set of tools to be easily noticed. Your perfect spot is usually where you shine, where the best of you is easily manifest and wanted by others. Quote, your talent is God's gift to you. What you do with it is your gift back to God. Leo Buscaglia. I believe that as we push like hell to find and build our perfect environments, whatever that means to you, we will grow to our perfect height in business, in sports, in music, as a parent, a student, or as a child of the Creator. Quote, to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. Track legend Steve Prefontaine. Like the giant sequoia, we too will more than fill our space as we continue to grow into our perfect environment, whatever that looks like. But also remember that growth and comfort don't usually coexist. Quote, the most difficult thing is the decision to act, and the rest is merely tenacity. Amelia Earhart. Sadly, when we get distracted from our God-given gifts, we're going to begin to live other people's dreams. Other people's dreams. When that happens, we are not only unfulfilled, but we mess with the flow of creation. Don't mess with the flow of creation. Quote, just don't give up on trying to do what you really want to do. Where there is love and inspiration, I don't think you can go wrong. End of quote. Ella Fitzgerald. Proverbs 13:20 from The Voice. One who walks with the wise becomes wise, but whoever keeps company with fools only hurts himself. Didn't your mom or grandma tell you to hang out with people better than you? Sure they did. Wisdom is simply utilizing your gift at a high level and in a place that you can shine. Let's give the best of ourselves. Let's uncover our raw talents and let's grow into our gifts. 1 Peter 2:11 from The Message. Friends, this world is not your home, so don't make yourself cozy in it. Don't indulge your ego at the expense of your soul. Live an exemplary life among the natives so that your actions will refute their prejudices. Then they'll be won over to God's side and be there to join in the celebration when He arrives. People need what you have to offer. They need what you have to offer. Let's guide them to the goodness of God by using our particular gifts. Quote, be not afraid of growing slowly. Be afraid only of standing still. Chinese proverb. My wife has the uncanny ability to wade into pretty much any conversation, in any group, anywhere, and people will give her the floor and laugh at her many stories. We were having one of our yearly neighborhood blowout parties at our house. The food was delicious, the conversation too loud, and the drinks disappeared a little too quickly. As the party reached a fevered pitch, I walked outside to check on things. Around the glass top patio table, the one with the big umbrella, there was a group of people listening and laughing in rapt attention as Josephine told her stories. Not reading the room, I pulled up a chair and thought that when JoJo finally took a breath, I would interject one of my own funny stories. Well, just as I shoved my way into the conversation, one of our well-watered neighbors, a huge muscular man, shushed me and said, Mark, I like your stories, but I think Josephine is the most interesting person on earth. With an ever so slightly bruised ego, I just smiled and found another group to talk with. Josephine has mastered her craft. No matter where she goes, Josephine can form her perfect environment through story. Josephine is a unicorn when it comes to fast friendships. Her stories touch people's souls in seconds. She's honed her gift since childhood and has made hundreds, maybe thousands of friends. I've seen her connect instantly with doctors, lawyers, moms, kids, retail employees, record producers, megachurch preachers, and mafia dons. She uses her gift in ways I don't even come close. With her ability to read people quickly and tell the perfect story for them, Josephine brings her perfect environment with her, no matter where she goes, and she does it with ease. Quote, it's never too late to be who you might have been. George Eliot. 1 Corinthians 13:11 from the NIV. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish things behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. Did you know that glass mirrors, as we know them, weren't invented until the 14th century? In the Apostle Paul's day, they used polished metal, or a shiny stone, or a bowl of water. It was always a very distorted image. Until the 1300s, nobody ever knew with any clarity what they actually looked like. Your self-image was up to how you thought of yourself. During an experiment, an FBI-trained forensic artist drew the same women twice. During the first portrait, the subject sat behind a curtain unseen by the illustrator. The artist asked them to describe their own face and features as he sketched what he heard them say. But the second portrait was drawn after the same lady interacted with a stranger in the waiting room for only a few minutes. Then that stranger describes to the artist how the subject looked. Here's what's interesting. When the person described themselves, the drawing looked sad and misshapen. But when the stranger described the person to the forensic artist, the picture looked flattering and just like them. If you want to see the actual drawings, check out the YouTube link in the footnotes. The difference is mind-blowing. This experiment showed that people are much too hard on themselves. Why is it that strangers see you better than you see yourself? Fully become the beautiful person you were meant to be, and only hang out with people who bring out the best in you. Find your tribe. Life's challenges are not supposed to paralyze you. They're supposed to help you discover who you are. End of quote. Bernice Johnson Reagan. In our future, we will clearly see the totality of who we were meant to be. But until that time, we keep plugging away and we keep growing. It's never easy. Romans 5:3. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. You ever notice how our greatest growth usually appears after some sort of struggle? God's love will be magnified during the darkest of times. Quote, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. End of quote. Frederick Douglass. Even with the Spirit of God, growth can be painful at times. But know that any sufferings we face will yield incredible learning, build strong character, and teach us to persevere. We can handle far more than we think we can. David Goggins, former Navy SEAL and ultra athlete, said, quote, don't stop when you're tired. Stop when you're done. End of quote. Then he adds, quote, when you think that you're done, you're only 40% into what your body's capable of doing. End of quote. Let's push a little harder and find a way to outgrow our space. Philippians 3:14 from the ESV. I press toward the goal to win the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. Paul's speaking here of the growth mindset. Growth requires constant practice, consistently pushing yourself, always stretching toward a higher goal, an upward calling. Just like your dad's childhood stories, it's always going to be uphill both ways. As long as we live on this side of heaven, we'll need to push ourselves. One day we'll arrive at our heavenly destination, but as long as we're still here on earth, there will always be room for growth. Actually, I think that there will always be opportunities for growth even throughout eternity. A fulfilled life is never stagnant. Isn't the resurrected Christ even now preparing a place for us? John 14:2. Building indicates growth, doesn't it? The Christ is still pushing himself and still growing. If Adam and Eve had to work the Garden of Eden in the first paradise, we too will have something to work on and beautify in the second paradise. That's growth. Growing our personal paradise in this free will environment is a process. Once those giant sequoias found themselves planted in their ideal environment and started growing, they kept growing for a long, long time. Once you find a place, a profession, a tribe, a job, a hobby, a calling that you thrive in, and you begin to see massive personal growth, that's probably a good place for you. For now, find your perfect environment. Do I stay or do I go? This next point is easy to say but hard to do. How do we know when it's time to make a switch, time to change careers, time to leave a job, a church, a team, or an old group of friends? Healthy relationships should make you feel uplifted and energized. You should never consistently feel emotionally exhausted. But if you don't feel loved, if you feel like you're carrying the relationship, if conflicts stay unresolved, if the rules of the game always seem to fall in favor of the other person or group, if there's consistent abuse of any kind, or worse, if you begin to dislike yourself, it may be time to go. Maybe time to go. As humans, we're wired to keep the tribe together. We need each other. It's lonely out there. It's scary out there. But sometimes we have to make the hard choice. Do I stay or do I go? I've had to leave people, places, and groups that I dearly love because I no longer fit. When I was 16, I quit high school. I walked out to my car and foolishly left a perfectly good home in search of adventure. There was no reason for me to leave, but I did. In my travels, I made some unsavory friends, but in some weird way, and by the grace of God, they helped me stay alive and have fun doing it. But the following summer, I changed once again. I became interested in, let's say addicted to God and truth, light, and love. I changed from the inside out. I was no longer the same Mark. I thought differently, talked about different things, even listened to different music. As I changed, I no longer fit with those old friends. I outgrew them, so I cut my long red hair. I moved back in with the family, registered for my final year of high school, and never looked back. I searched far and wide for a group of Christians who lived like Acts, but who weren't religious about it. Within a year or so, I found a wonderful Christian ministry to grow with. They gave me endless opportunities for adventure. I grew into them and they grew into me. We were symbiotic. We were one, me and that ministry. But like every living organism, they too were growing and changing and adapting. And over a 30-year span, they'd grown one way and my wife and I grew another. When the current leadership saw us incrementally peeling away, like a crazed, jilted lover, they came at us with a suffocating vengeance, demanding we conform to their latest version of churchianity. We were done. It was time to leave that tribe and build another. We felt like that enlightened cave couple who got kicked out of the tribe's dingy cavern because we discovered fire. So, what do we do with ourselves after a major life growth spurt, leading to a breakup from something or someone? It can be scary and lonely. The Apostle Paul made mention of this. Romans 12:2, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. This transformation, this upward renewing, this metamorphosis, if you will, happens over time and is usually accompanied with some sort of struggle. We no longer fit in the world we once built. Have you ever had to painfully wait for someone to change their horrible life situation? We can all easily see how great their life could be if they would just. Paul talks about waiting for others to grow. Galatians 4:19 from the Message. Do you know how I feel right now? And will feel until Christ's life becomes visible in your lives? Like a mother in the pain of childbirth. Paul was talking about the birth pangs of waiting on someone else to grow more than they themselves wanted to grow. Christ never forces himself on us. We're the ones who must decide to be Christ-like. When I was a young forestry student in Nacogdoches, Texas, the land of tall women and virgin timber, we were required to spend many hours in the East Texas woods identifying trees. I loved every second of it. Even our final exam was done mostly outside. We had to be able to identify over 100 trees and their Latin name by just looking at a random leaf or a twig or fruit or the bark. Well, one blazingly hot Texas day, I came across a large tree in full leaf that I didn't recognize, and I thought I knew them all. The bark and twigs told me it was a red oak, Quercus rubra, but the leaves weren't oak-like at all. The three-part leaflet told me a completely different story. I stared at it for a few minutes, trying to make sense. I looked on the ground for the acorns, or some indicator, but found none. It was weird to me. Every branch was covered with shiny green and red leaflets. It was majestic, yet something was wrong. Something didn't fit. I walked around the tree looking for anything that would help me identify it, and then I saw it. On the far side of the tree was a massive hairy vine as thick as my arm growing straight up the backside of that huge tree. Its tentacles spread out into every branch and twig of that once mighty oak. The vine had been growing there so long, it had literally grown into the tree, choked the life out of it, and became the tree. It overtook every branch. It was poison ivy, Toxicodendron radicans. That poison ivy vine outgrew its space at the base of the oak and slowly overtook the mighty tree. Now, I hate poison ivy, but did you know that poison ivy is part of the cashew family? And its poisonous to us fruit feeds many woodland creatures and migratory birds. Even poison ivy has its place in this whole orchestra we call life. God takes care of more than just us humans. But for us, it's usually good to adhere to the old Boy Scout adage, quote, leaflets free, let it be. It's poison ivy or poison oak, end quote. My side point here is sometimes you no longer fit in a group, a job, a relationship, or a ministry. Sometimes your gift, your fruit is no longer needed there, no longer wanted. You've done all you can do. And it's time to move on and let someone or something else enjoy that sunlight or those berries. That's okay. You did your part. Be proud. Quote, we are products of our past, but we don't have to be prisoners of it. End of quote. Ministry builder Rick Warren. When contemplating a huge life change, ask yourself, quote, do I stay or do I grow? Do I stay or do I grow? So here's practical tips. Here's some practical tips for personal growth. I want to show you a few tips that's helped me grow in the direction that I wanted to grow. All of them are pretty easy to do. Well, read or listen to audible books. Reading changes you. Like I said earlier, I'm doing about 50 books a year. Plus, I work on my teachings every morning. Exercise a few times a week. Keep your body moving. Eat smarter, drink more water, and get more sleep. Don't we hear this all the time? Keep your self-talk positive. Be good to yourself. It's your internal mirror. Smartly invest your money and gradually increase the amount year after year. Quote, someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. End of quote. Warren Buffett. Adopt the 2-minute rule, which is, if you can do something in less than 2 minutes, if you can do something in 2 minutes or less, do it right then. Take out the trash, straighten up your desk, do the dishes, give that hug, write that note, text, or post. Embrace the suck. Acknowledge the hardships, resist the urge to complain, and just keep moving. This is an interesting but very necessary quality. Or as William Shakespeare once wrote, quote, let thee embrace me, sour adversity, for wise men say it is the wisest course. End of quote. That was Shakespeare's way of telling people to embrace the suck. Now, when I was still in my 20s, Joseph and I somehow washed up in Grand Island, Nebraska. It was a 1-year unpaid ministry assignment meant to be a challenge and a proving ground for self-development. The town had been devastated by 7 consecutive tornado attacks that each put that city in their bullseye. I landed a job with a construction company rebuilding a meatpacking plant. On my first day at that job, an overlarge boss, wearing a smudged white hard hat, told me to follow him. He waddled down to the pond at the edge of the property, put his puffy hands on his hips, and ordered me to paddle an ugly gray rowboat out onto that pond and drag a thick black tarp back to the shore. Now that tarp had once covered that small pond, had ripped in a recent windstorm. So I paddled out to the gargantuan tarp, tied a corner of it onto the little boat, and began to row back to the shore with all my might. It was heavy, and the pond was stinky, woohoo! But I kept rowing. When I finally paddled back to the white hat, the big guy asked me if I knew what I just did. And he laughed and said, "Boy, you can now tell people you rowed a boat on a SHIT pond." Now, excuse the language, but that's exactly what he said. The methane that off-gassed from the cow poop slurry that was washed off the feedlot every night collected under that tarp and helped power the plant. It didn't take a genius to know that I had just embraced the suck. Buddhists, endurance athletes, struggling musicians, and all moms changing yet another dirty diaper or fighting with their mouthy teenage daughter all know what embracing the suck means. Quote, the will to win, the desire to succeed, the urge to reach your full potential. These are the keys that will unlock the door to personal excellence. Confucius. Besides studying the Word of God, those are a few of the things I have built into my life that have helped me over the years. When we finally decide we've had enough of our current situation, we put our heads down and relentlessly move toward our change. Start every adventure. Always remember, start every adventure with a few small steps. Remember the 1% rule. Sharpen your gift. Josephine has refined her ability to connect with people through storytelling and has blessed many thousands. Whatever you're good at, keep getting better at it. Keep getting better at it. Grow like a giant sequoia. Or to grow like a giant sequoia, you need to find your perfect environment. It may be a place, but it will probably be a talent, a skill, or a mindset that opens the door to healthier relationships. Know that you will outgrow some people, places, and jobs, and you will experience growing pains. So embrace the suck. You will have problems along the way. So as the bard once said, embrace me, sour adversity. Most importantly, hang on to those verses that help you grow through your current struggle. You can do far more than you think you can do. Keep moving, keep motivating, keep growing. And when you grow through your comfort zone, something better will always open up to you. That's how we outgrow our space. God bless you all.